Okay, math cats, how we doing? Today we're going to do a little one-step equations. I'm going to go through how to do one-step equations, add, subtracting, multiplication, division, and fractions. And you make sure to watch the fractions part because that's a little tricky. All right, so what is a one-step equation? Well, let's see. Step 1, to solve it, you find your equal sign. Step 2, find your variable sign. Step 3, find your variable, and on that side you want to get rid of what's farthest to closest to your variable. Variable is the last thing you're going to solve. Alright, so how do I do that? Well, if I want to move this 8 to the other side, I got to do the opposite underneath. Alright, so when I do the opposite underneath, instead of positive 8, I'm going to make that negative 8. What you do on one side of the equation, you got to do on the other. And make sure when you work in your equations and you watching this video and you're doing your homework that you write all this out. Okay? It's like shooting free throws in the basketball game. If you didn't practice your free throws at practice, you're not going to do too well out on the court during the game. So you got to write this down and show every step, just like me. All right, zero out your 8. And by the way, when I say zero out, that means I subtract it on the other side, okay? Or add it if it's a negative. So I'm going to zero out my 8, bring down my x. X equals 12 minus 8 is 4. Box around your final answer. Got that? It's your basic one-step equation. Let's do another one. All right, I got m minus 3 equals negative 8. Well, that's negative 3, so I'm going to make that positive 3. What you do on one side, you do on the other. Now, that cancels out. Bring down my m. m equals negative 8, positive 3. Signs are different. Subtract. Take the higher sign, and I get negative 5. Negative 8 plus 3. Box around your final answer. See how this worky? Good. All right, moving along. Here's my next one. Now, this one's a little tricky because it's got a negative variable. And we're going to have to take care of that negative at the very end. So watch what we do. Well, equal sign, variable side, variable, get rid of what's farthest to closest to the variable. Well, I got a 2. That's a positive 2. So I'm going to write negative 2 underneath. Negative 2 underneath. That cancels out. I get negative x equals 12 minus 2 is 10. But wait. We don't like negative variables. We got to get rid of them. So basically what we got to do is we got to multiply the negative variable by negative 1. So that means when I multiply this by negative 1 times negative x gives me positive x. But don't forget, what you do on one side of an equation, you got to do on the other. So if I'm going to multiply by negative 1 here, I got to multiply by negative 1 there. Positive 10 times negative 1 equals negative 10. Just remember, if you end up with a negative variable, you're going to have to take care of that, and it's always going to be the opposite on this side and the opposite on the other. So the opposite of negative x is positive x. The opposite of positive 10 is negative 10. Boom, bada, bing. Moving along. Okay, let's do multiplication. Now remember the multiplication rules. What are they? If the signs are alike, okay, it's positive. Positive times a positive is a positive. Negative times a negative is a positive. If the signs are different, okay, then you're going to make it negative. And I'll show that in a moment. So this is real easy. 18 equals 6x. Equal sign, variable, get rid of what's farthest, the closest. I just got a 6 here. If that's 6 times x, you're going to do the opposite. Now I'm going to call this oneing out, and I'll show you why. One out means you're going to use multiplication and division. I'm going to 1 out this 6 through division. Why? Because the opposite of 6 times x is 6 divided by x. I'm going to 1 out the 6. And what you do on one side, you got to do on the other. The 6 cancels out, gives me x equals 18 divided by 6 is 3. Boom, bada, bing. X equals 3. Now, if you're a smart cat, you'll do a quick check. Well, let's see. 6 times 3 equals 18. All right. Moving along. Now, I got negative 7x equals 7. Well, I got a negative on the 7, so what I have to do when I divide it out is I got to bring that negative down with me. So negative 7 divided by negative 7, a negative into a negative is a positive, so that's positive x. What you do on one side, you got to do on the other. So negative 7 into positive 7 is a negative 1. Boom, bada, bing. Got it? Hopefully you're writing these down and working them as I'm working them. Next, I have negative 5 equals negative 3. Well, equal sign, variable, get rid of what's farthest closest, and look here. I'm going to divide by negative 5, divide by negative 5. That cancels out and gives me y. Oh, goodness, 5 won't go into 3 evenly. We're going to have a fraction, which is okay. Just leave it in improper fraction terms. So negative into a negative is a positive, so my answer is going to be positive. And 5 and 3, well, can I reduce that? Is there a number that'll go into 3 and 5? No, there's not. So I just bring it down. Negative into a negative is a positive, so I get positive 3/5. Box around your final answer. Boom, bada, bing. All right? Okay, next. Oh, this is an easy one. Looks like it. I'm going to divide by 8. Divide by 8. Okay, that cancels out. Gives me t. T equals, oh, wait a minute. 8 won't go into 2 evenly. It's going to be a fraction. Well, what do I do there? Well, what? I could put down 2 8s, but it'll reduce. So I'm going to reduce first. So what number will go into 2 and 8? Well, 2 will go in, right? 2 will go in. So 2 goes into 2 1 time, and 2 goes into 8 4 times. And my answer is t equals 1/4. We cool? Moving along. 10w equals negative 8. Divide by 10. 10 times w, so I'm going to divide, and it's positive. Always, whatever the sign is, you divide by that same sign. Divide by 10. That cancels out, gives me w equals, but wait, 8 over 10, that's a fraction, because that 10 don't go into 8. So what number will go into both those? Ooh, a 2 will go into both those. 2 goes into negative 8, right? 2 goes into negative 8, negative 4 times. 2 goes into 10, positive 5 times. And because a positive into a negative, I get a negative answer. Now sometimes, instead of having it on the top, they're just going to put it outside, so that becomes w equals negative 4/5. Okay? I like to put them on top, but usually a lot of cats want to put them on the side. Now, division. One-step equations using division. Well, you're just doing the opposite, all right? You're doing the opposite of division. This is x divided by 3 equals negative 5. So what do I got to do? Equal sign, variable, get rid of what's farthest to closest. Well, there's a 3 there. If that's x divided by 3, then you're going to multiply by 3. And what you do on one side, you have to do on the other. So the 3, okay, and this is why I call it one-ing out. 3 times x is 3x. Divided by 3 is 1x. And that is how we got our x. We're going to 1 out, and I'm the only one that calls it 0 out and 1 out. But 0 out means add, subtract in my classroom. 1 out means divide or multiply. So x equals, well, negative times a positive is a negative. Negative 5 times positive 3 is negative 15. Boom, bada, bing. And basically, negative 15 divided by 3 equals negative 5. Quick check. All right, we have x over negative 6 equals negative 6. Equal sign, variable, get rid of what's farthest to closest. Well, I've got to get rid of this negative 6. I'm going to 1 it out. I'm going to multiply by negative 6, okay? And when I do that, negative 6 times x is negative 6x divided by negative 6 gives me x. Now remember, what you do on one side of an equal sign, you got to do on the other. So negative 6 times negative 6 is positive 36. Boom, bada, bing. All right. I have x over negative 5 equals 7. X divided by negative 5 means I'm going to multiply by negative 5. Okay? That gives me plain old X, negative, negative. Okay? And remember, what you do on one side, you have to do on the other. 7 times a negative 5 is negative 35. Okay? If you're a smart cat, you'll go, let's see, negative 35 divided by negative 5 is positive 7. Yeah, that works. We cool. Now, the tough one. One-step equations with fractions. All right, just remember this. Whenever you divide a fraction, you're basically multiplying by the reciprocal, by the flip. All right, so that's how we're going to solve this. All right, so this is 3 over 2t equals 12. Well, how would I solve that? Well, since it's 3/2 times t, I would divide, right? Normally, you're going to divide. You do the opposite of what you see. So in this situation, what I'm going to do is I'm going to multiply by the reciprocal. I'm going to flip that 3 over 2 and multiply it out. So let's see, how does this work mathematically? What is the reciprocal of 3 over 2? Well, it's 2 over 3. And what does that give me? Well, 2 times 3 is 1. Or, excuse me, 2 times 3 is 6. 3 times 2 is 6. And 6 goes into 6 one time. So that ends up being 1t. That's why I multiplied by the reciprocal. 2 times 3 is 6. 3 times 2 is 6. 6 goes into 6 one time. So I get 1t. But remember, what you do on one side of an equal sign, you got to do on the other. So that means I got to come over here and multiply the 12 by 2/3. Now when I do this, I'm going to put a little over 1 there. And I get 12 times 2 is 24. And I get 1 times 3 is 3. So the fraction is 3/24, but 3 will go into 24 equally. How many times does 3 go into 24? It goes in 8 times. Okay, 24 divided by 3 is 8. So t equals 8. One more time, let's review that. I had a fraction times a t times a variable. I multiplied that fraction by its reciprocal, its flip. Okay, that makes the variable one variable. Then I do it on the other side. I put a 1 underneath my number. And then I multiply across and I reduce or go into whatever you need to do to get my answer. Let's do another one. I got 12 equals 5 over 2w. Well, equal sign, variable side. Variable, I'm going to get rid of what's far as closest. I got to get rid of the 5 over 2. So in this situation, all right, how would I get rid of that 5 over 2 times w? I'm going to divide it, which means I'm going to multiply by the reciprocal. So I'm going to multiply this by 5. Oh, gosh almighty. I'm going to multiply this by 2 over 5. That cancels out. All right, that cancels out and gives me w. Because 5 times 2 is 10. 2 times 5 is 10. 10 over 10w is 1w. Now, remember, what you do on one side of equal sign, you got to do on the other. So I'm going to come over here, and I'm going to multiply this one. All right? I'm going to multiply this by 2/5. Because 5, 2, the reciprocal is 2/5. So now 2 times 12, okay, is 24. All right? And that's over 1. 1 times 5 is 5. 24 over 5. Will that reduce? It won't reduce. And we're going to leave it improper. Okay? For the most part, let's leave our fractions improper. So this ends up being 24 over 5. Boom, bada, bing. W equals 24 over 5. I got 17 equals negative 3/2 x. Well, what am I going to do here? What am I going to do? I've got to, if this is negative 3/2 times x, I got to do the opposite. I got to divide. And how do you divide a fraction? You multiply by the reciprocal. So this becomes 2 over negative 3. That cancels out, and I get x equals. Now remember, what you do on one side, you got to come over here and do on the other. All right? 2 over negative 3 Now what does that give me? 2 times 17. Well, 2 times 10 is 20. And 2 times 7 is 14. So 10 plus 14 is 34. I'm sorry. 20 plus 14 is 34. All right? Okay, so I get 34. And negative 3 times 1 is negative 3. Now, some cats are okay with this as an answer. By the way, 3 won't go into 34 even, so it's as improperly reduced as I can get. But some cats want to see, some math folks want to see the negative outside like this. So either one of those is exactly the same. All right? And what may end up happening in your Delta math, they may want to see it this way. You just have to figure it out. They'll tell you. All right. Okay, what do I have here? 6/5 x. So I got to, since that's to divide, I got to multiply by the reciprocal. 5/6. Okay? That cancels out and gives me x. Now, what you do on one side, you got to come over and do on the other. 5/6, I'm going to make that over 1. 5 times negative 10 is negative 50. 6 times 1, okay, is 6. Now, is there a number that will go into both those that we could reduce? I think there is. All right. 5 won't go into both of them. 3 won't go into both of them, but 2 will go into both of them. 2 will go in. So I'm going to divide both those by 2. And 2 goes into negative 50, negative 25 times. And 2 goes into 6 3 times. So x equals negative 25/3. Now, like I said, some cats might want to see it written like this. Negative on the outside. Negative 25/3. So that also would be the final answer. All right. Hopefully you understand what we did. Hopefully you wrote this down, and good luck on your assignment. Bye-bye.